Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Wells Show. This is Kathleen, your host, and good afternoon to everyone listening to us on the live stream link. In fact, good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And I played that song, Going in Circles, by the Friends of Distinction, because my guest today, my special guest today, is Taki Raton, and he says that black folks are sleepwalking back into slavery. So obviously, if we're sleepwalking back into slavery, I think going in circles may be an appropriate tune. What do you think? I'm going to ask him specifically if that was the right tune to play. If we're sleepwalking back into slavery, does that mean we're going in circles? I would think so. But before I bring on Taki Raton, let me tell you a little bit about him. Taki Raton is an adjunct professor at Springfield College in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's the former founder and principal of Beden Delaney Academy in Milwaukee. That school was a school which operated under an African-centered, instructional, and student-centered developmental model. This all-black private school served area children from 1998 to 2008, 10 years. So I also want to ask him, why did the doors close after 10 years? Taki is a writer and a lecturer on the national stage detailing African world historiography, urban community concerns with an emphasis on education and the social development of black youth and African American male issues. Also, Raton hosts the weekly Thursday evening radio show, Men Think, on the Harambee Radio and TV Internet Broadcast Network. His work and authorship in the education of African American youth has been referenced in A House Divided No More, Time for Indigenous Communal Healing, Why Aren't African-Centered Charters Running Turnarounds, The Afrocentric Education Debate Alive in Milwaukee, Brother to Brother, A Message of Hope, American Journal of Education, and Why Our Children Hate Us, How Black Adults Have Betrayed Black Children. I've got to ask them about that, too. How have black adults betrayed black children? Taki is a contributing writer for the Milwaukee Community Journal and Milwaukee Courier newspapers. His series, Young, Gifted, and Black, appears bi-monthly in the Courier, highlighting achievements of African American youth. So, Taki, thank you for joining me on the Kathleen Wells Show.
Yes, ma'am. It's my pleasure. I thought you were playing Going in Circles because I told you I was old school.
No, I played Going in Circles because you said, I read that you wrote that blacks are literally going back, sleepwalking back into slavery. So I thought maybe that's circles. I mean, maybe not exactly circles. It's regressive.
Yes. Actually, I was quoting Robert Redrick Johnson. He wrote that book, Blacks Are Sleepwalking Back into Slavery. Wake up, Black America, you're sleepwalking back into slavery. He's out of Chicago. And I had him on my show several times. I did a series on old school. And I had him on my show twice to talk about the old school trends that we obviously got away from. And we got away from that exactly at the point of integration, exactly in the 1970s. And I used him to speak to what it was like during that era of old school and what we lost as a result of the integration era.
Well, let's get specific. You say that...
Sure.
Yeah, let's get specific. You say that black adults have betrayed black children. Be specific. Tell me, why is that so? And how is that so?
Okay, that is from the book, How Black Adults Betrayed Black Children by Eric Grimes and Bush Slaughter. They're out of Philadelphia. The first edition of that book came out in 2005. The second edition came out in 2006. And without having the book in front of me, we brought them into Milwaukee to speak on two occasions. They said that because it's actually black adults, what's happening with our children right now in 2013 is a direct outcome of black adults moving away from blackness. Black children do not like blackness because black adults do not like blackness. And their position is that since we have moved away from our history, our culture, our ancestry, our community, our whole sense of family, we are the black adults is the one who have destroyed basically black family, black community. We are the ones who have closed the doors on black history. I do not blame white people, nor do I blame white supremacy, nor do I blame racism for that. We did that. And we did that with the acceptance of integration. We moved away from ourselves, moved away from our foundation, our anchor, everything that would hold a people together. We moved away from that. And in our moving away from that, our children picked up that we don't like ourselves, who we are as black adults. And as in the process of doing that, we have betrayed our children and the next generation coming up. So it's a beautiful book, 72 pages. The book now costs $2,025 on Amazon.
Well, give me some examples. Tell me how black adults do not have moved away from their blackness. Give me examples of how we do not like ourselves.
Well, typically, one example is being in the African community and working with African schools and all black agendas, which is what I do. I'm a Pan-African nationalist, very proud Pan-African nationalist. I say it in my writings. I say it when I teach, lecture. When we were pushing the African agenda from the modern concept of that started in 84. We began to push it very strongly in 87. From 87 all the way into the 90s, we have actually and literally rescued and reconstructed our entire history from day one, from humankind origin to the present. We told our people, we taught, we educated, we wrote, we lectured, we conferenced that we were the first and only people on the face of this earth. There's no one else on this earth but us. We talked about how we migrated out of Africa into Europe, which is why you have the first European around 32,000 BCE. And we talked about the whole process of how we demelanated and the other groups came out of us and how the white man, what we call the European, was actually the last race to demelanate. We talked about Runoko Rashidi and his work of how we became the founding cultures in the world. We did all of that. But even as you go into the millennium, our people refuse to even deal with that. We rescued our whole essence on the world stage of time achievement. And black people to this day, 2013, still do not embrace our scholarship, our research, our leadership in that regard. We still choose to go the way of the European, go the way of the European frame of reference, the European worldview, that their way is still right and the highest order way to follow. Mm-hmm. Our children see that.
I can see that. I agree with that because what are the movies that are coming out of Hollywood? The Help, The Butler, The Slave, as if we started with slavery as opposed to going back to our history, our ancient history, our ancient culture. Exactly. I can see that.
Yeah, and our children know that something's wrong. They don't know what. They don't know what is wrong. They're going to school and they're around. I'm in Milwaukee. Milwaukee has a very strong Hispanic community, and they're around other people, other children who feel good about themselves, who know about themselves, and who embrace their culture and their history. But our children feel that something is absent, something is missing from our culture and from our beingness that they're not getting, that other children are getting, and they feel kind of pissed about that, and they don't know why. They go to school. And they sense that the school is being very, very, very hostile against them, very, I mean, the word racist against them. And they see this happening to them each and every day. They're trying to tell their parents, they're trying to tell the community that I don't like going to school, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to be around those people, they don't like me. And so our children naturally zone out. What is happening with our children, and there's a lot of work, there's a lot of research done on this, and I've quoted this in my writing. Our children have been telling us ever since 2002, 2003, 2004, I do not want to be in these schools. So oftentimes you see high suspension rates that our children are actually suspending themselves on purpose because our parents, our community refuse to take them out, refuses to build schools for them, refuses to put them into loving, nurturing, and growing environments, as do all other children. And so our children are just raising havoc in these schools.
So why does go ahead. I'm sorry.
And so they're telling us over and over and over. There's nothing wrong with our children. Our children teach for practically all of my professional life. And I know when we look at these children today, they're children. They're children. And they're acting naturally and normally to a racist, hostile, and negative environment on a day-by-day basis, spending 7 to 8 hours in these schools. That's actually going against their very nature as a human being, and particularly as a black human being. Yes, ma'am.
So why did the Beden Delaney Academy in Milwaukee close its doors after 10 years?
That was a business decision because the nature we were under vouchers and what we call school choice, what's called vouchers around the country. And the whole voucher system in Milwaukee was about to change as you move into 2008, 2009. The accreditation policy was about to change, of which we were in full compliance, moving towards accreditation. But then they were saying that your teachers had to be certified, the teachers had to have X amount of courses, and I as principal had all of my qualifications. I was fine. But then we had to bring in certified teachers, and a lot of other restrictions that they were about to bring in would have compromised our African-centered agenda had we kept on. So it would not have been in our interest to continue schooling under the choice sponsorship. So we got out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's just a matter of funding.
Because of funding?
No, we chose to get out because we didn't want to deal with the restrictions and the various types of things that were coming down the pipe off the choice schools.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there were various restrictions. There were various other types of qualifications that we had to meet moving forward from 2008, 2009, 2010 that I just chose not to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope other schools pop up in its place.
That's not that are African-centered. Basically, what is happening around the country, again, my program is Men's Think. We are highlighting African-centered schools on each week during October. What a lot of schools are doing and what a lot of people are doing are just going totally independent and not falling under these restrictions of either choice or charter. We do have quite a few extremely good charter schools that are African-centered around the country. Harambe Institute of Science and Technology, which I had on my show last week, and the Joseph Little Goose Samba Charter School, which I'm going to have on my show tomorrow, is also charter. However, myself, along with others, choose not to be under either choice or charter moving forward and become fully independent.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I want to hire what type of teachers I want to hire. I want to train them myself. I do not want them necessarily go through a certification process, plus all the other restrictions that we have to follow being a funded school.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you made this very provocative statement. You stated that black people literally do just the opposite of what white people do, and each and every other ethnic group in America and globally to generate a job-producing economic base amongst and for their own people. Elaborate on that.
Okay, that was from my article, Stop Looking for a Handout, Black America, and Be Responsible, Your Destiny's in Your Hands. That was August 27, 2013. That's not really provocative because that is what everybody else does in the entire world, not just America, but in the world. We are the only people, black people are the only people who expect everybody else to do for us when, in fact, we do not do for ourselves. We're always begging and expecting others to provide for us, as opposed to what other groups do. I later say, and again, that's the result of integration. Because once we integrated, we put ourselves under the umbrella and in the hands of somebody else, almost totally. I give the impression. I make the statement as we move into the articles about other groups. And again, what I'm saying is not provocative. We are the only group that's out of order with the natural order of how the world works. We are the only group. The black man is the only man who is out of order in this country and in the world in comparison to how other men in the world function. I talk about New York City, where there are 300,000 Koreans in the metropolitan area, and there are 10,000 Korean-owned businesses which annually make $1.5 billion a year. They hire and train their own kind. We have high unemployment in the black community because we don't have jobs for our own people. All other people in the world. And I talk about the Koreans, I talk about the Hispanics, I talk about the Asians. Everybody else provides jobs for their own people, provides jobs for their own men. I do not expect white men. I do not expect the system to provide jobs for us, for black men, before they provide jobs for themselves. All men, all races, and all groups are responsible for taking care of their own first, foremost, and always. We are the only people who expect others. We put ourselves into their house. We are the only people who expect others to treat us the same way they treat their own. The same way they treat their own children, the same way they treat their own men, the same way they treat their own families, the same way they treat their own neighborhoods. And that is not the natural flow of men. That's one of the reasons why I'm moving forward just a little bit. That's one of the reasons why I say civil rights was wrong, because it did not, there are many reasons. One of the reasons being is that Martin Luther King, earlier, before he started meeting with Elijah Muhammad on 2 occasions in 1966, U.S. civil rights leadership did not understand the nature of men. It is not the nature of men, number one, first to integrate, to move out of their culture, to move out of their customs, move out of their community into somebody else. Your city is supposed to be segregated. They say, I'm from Chicago. And they say Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the country. It's not. Chicago is segregated. All groups tend to want to live amongst their own kind, because all groups have their own unique way of life, their unique language, their unique history, their unique heritage, their unique customs, mores, and values, and religion that they share amongst their own. That's the natural order and natural way of men. We are the only people that fight to be amongst other folks, and they don't want you because you're not of their kind, period. It's that simple. And so when as Dr. Claude Anderson said that when other people in Europe or in Asia or wherever they are want to come to America, they look in the mirror at themselves and say, I want to go to America and be around people who look like me. I want to go around America and be in a community of my own kind. That is what people do. We are the only folk in the entire world, because of this thing we might call self-hate, who say, look in the mirror and I say, I want to be around folk who don't look like me. I want to be around white folk.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to be around other people.
Yeah, you give the data, the example of Afghans coming to New York City.
Sure.
Yeah, and now they have, Afghans teaching other
Afghans. They have now over 200 area fast food restaurants. One Afghan owns as more as 40 franchise chicken restaurants. How do they do it? They say that when new arrivals come in, they come into the restaurant, they sit, they watch, they learn, and then they work. Black people do just the opposite.
We do just the opposite. Well,
just the opposite.
We do just the opposite. We're going to take a break now, but when we come back from the break, we're going to go over some specifics as to how the civil rights movement taught us not to, well, you kind of touched on it, didn't you? You say
Sure.
the civil rights movement said that we needed to integrate. And your position is that no, we did not need to integrate. We need to build our own economic base.
Right.
Right. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'll think about something at the break of where we're going to go. I have my notes. I'll bring them out.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Kathleen Wells Show, and my guest today is Taki S. Raton, who is an adjunct professor at Springfield College in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And what we're talking about the fact that black people have been betrayed by the civil rights movement. Not betrayed, failed. The civil rights movement has failed black people. Did I get it right, Taki?
Yes, ma'am. And again, when we say the civil rights movement has failed black people, or how did the civil rights movement fail black people, I don't want to totally blame the leadership of the civil rights movement. A lot of it is on us, too, as a black people, as a black group, because I'm amazed. And my timeline is the last 43 years. The last 43 years, 1972 to 2013, has been the most regressive and decaying years I maintain in our history. Not even compared to our enslavement, the 246 years of enslavement from 1619 to 1865. In some cases, we're doing worse than we did then. I mean, you have more black men incarcerated right now in 2013 than you did black men on a plantation in 1850.
I know. I'm familiar with that data.
Right.
I've had Michelle Alexander. I've interviewed Michelle Alexander.
You have Michelle, sure.
Yeah, and her book, Mass Incarceration, The New Jim Crow.
New Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be the devil's advocate, because I believe that data. However, I've heard some people say, well, that's not absolutely accurate because we're focusing on the negative, and there are actually more black men in college. What would your response be to people who sort of refute that data, that we're worse off today?
I can't think of the brother's name. I do have his book, and I have read his data. I am comfortable with my data. I am comfortable with our research. I don't want to just automatically refute him. We do have a sizable number of black males in college. However, I do want to underscore that Dr. Claude Anderson, and I don't have his notes in front of me, but he speaks quite clearly. The number of black men in prison nationally is over 50% and approaching 60-70%. The number of black males between the ages of 20 and 34, which Dr. Claude Anderson, says is the most productive years in a black man's life, is that we now have majority of our over 50% of black males in that age group now in some phase of the judicial system. Mm-hmm. So we can rah-rah on the number of black males who are in college. However, from my research and from my work that I'm doing, because I study trends, and I do know for a fact the number of black males in college is right now declining. Mm-hmm. Because you now have a declining number of black males who are graduating from high school, from secondary levels. That I do know.
Mm-hmm. You know, I know,
and that gets to be a whole other kind of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I was just playing the devil's advocate because I go along with that.
Right.
Yeah, I go along with Michelle Alexander's data. I've had Dr. Claude Anderson on this show. Mm-hmm. I go along with his data. Even no matter, and I saw some statistic recently that said that during Stalin's Gulag, it was like 800 and some to every 100,000 persons were in prison. And in America today, it's something like 700 and something. And I know that over the last 30 years, 60% of the increase over the last 30 years have been for nonviolent drug offenses, and the majority, 2/3 of that, 60%, is black folks for nonviolent drug offenses. So I think it's important that we know this stuff and not ignore it, not try to sweep over it. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's critical. In the state prisons, 47% are black, and the federal prisons, 52% are black. 96% of all the prisoners in the U.S. are black men. Dr. Anderson Thompson, I found the notes.
And you also write in your piece that you say that Black folks nationally spend over $154 billion annually with other people outside of our community on such consumables as footwear, clothing, coin-operated laundry, and dry cleaning, food, alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, vehicle purchases, personal care products, electronic products, housing, and health care, thus greatly assisting in securing, for example, the economic base of retailers, manufacturers, producers, distributors of others. So the question is, where are our businesses? Where are Black businesses?
And that continues to say that our dollars have to keep other people employed for our own politicians and organizational leaders nationwide run to the system. See, understand what I wrote there. We spend $154 billion annually with other people on consumables. We secure the economic base of retailers, manufacturers, producers, and distributions of other people. After we do that, we then go to our politicians and organizational leaders and other people outside of our community asking for jobs and resources for our community when, in fact, we are able to provide for our own. I did talk about, it answers your question, we are, the civil rights movement, the civil rights rhetoric, and civil rights philosophy, if you go back into 1970, 71, 72, 70, 60, 69, 68, 67, if you go back into the rhetoric, we were actually conditioned to believe that looking at the Garvey model, the Marcus Garvey model, the Booker T. Washington model, the Carter G. Woodson model, the Malcolm X model, the Black Panthers model, Nation of Islam model, Black Power, the whole Black conscious movement, when we said work for ourselves, do for ourselves, build our own communities, build our own businesses, what the civil rights people did, they turned that around and said that those of us who spoke to that were what? We were separatists. We were militant. We were radical. We didn't like white folks. And so we were taught to be the bad guy. When in fact, when we said work for ourselves, build our own communities, build our own families, raise our own children, build our own schools, provide for ourselves economically, create our own businesses so we can employ our own people and run money within our own communities. That is what everybody else did. So at the exact same time, we were told not to do that. And the civil rights movement, and Dr. Amos Wilson says this in his book. He said quite clearly, the civil rights movement, and I guess you could say the liberal left or whoever was over our Black leadership, convinced the civil rights movement not to deal with economics. Dr. Martin Luther King saw he saw that was wrong as he was moving into 68. He saw from 60, 66, 67. He saw that he was wrong. He was about to move towards the position of Stokely Carmichael. He was about to move towards the position of Malcolm X. He was about to move towards the position of Elijah Muhammad and Nation of Islam. Around the same time, he was about to kind of inch into economics, self-reliance, self-determination. He was killed April 4, 1968. I am one who believes that that's why he was killed.
You know, and I
because
saw
he was about to change his position more towards a self-reliant, self-determining economic base in line with how America works.
And that's interesting.
Let me just finish the point. The civil rights people, the civil rights agenda was told not to deal with economics, to deal only with discrimination. Discrimination in jobs, discrimination in employment, discrimination in housing, discrimination in education, only discrimination issues. So as you move into 68, 69, 70, 71, and in the 70s, the whole issue with civil rights was dealing with matters of discrimination. A white man living into your job, living into your employment, living in your community, your house, your housing area, your schools. while at the same time in 71, 72, the Hispanics, the Asians, and other immigrants coming into this country were dealing with an economic base, a community base, a cultural base. We were told to do by the civil rights people just the opposite of how America works. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that I was just going to agree with you because I recently saw a speech that Dr. Martin Luther King gave in a line with the Black Panther Party. He was in agreement with the Black Panther Party. This was and see, we don't get why don't we hear these speeches? What we always hear, they always say, it's not the content of your character, that thing. That's it. And I have a dream. But also I want to talk about the fact that when we talk about the fact that blacks we do not build within our community, what better example than Dr. Dre giving $72 million to USC? Did you know that?
Oh, yeah, I saw that on the net some time ago.
I mean, but that's how can he do that? How can he do that? I'm perplexed.
Well, I'm not quite sure how he did that. I do say that one of the things that I spoke about, and I'm not getting all point. One of the things that I spoke about in that same article was that I talked about, again using Robert Redrick, I talked about old school and how during his time in Natchez, Mississippi, that's in Natchez, Mississippi, in Chicago, and around the country during that period, we had black businesses. We had black doctors, black lawyers, black restaurants, black nightclubs, soda fountains, barbershops, beauty nail shops, gambling joints, funeral homes. We had a black lottery, and that these businesses provided income for the community, provided jobs for the people, and provided models for the children. In 1940s, we had more than 150 black businesses owned by African Americans that flourished in Durham, North Carolina. Among these were restaurants, movie theaters, barbershops, nightclubs, boarding houses, printing shops, grocery stores, bank savings and loan establishments, so on and so forth. I used that to when I wrote the article to show our readers, particularly our young, that how we are right now in 2013 is unnatural and abnormal. That we're not supposed to be this way. And Dr. Claude Anderson says in his DVD, Vision Beyond a Dream, that we have been conditioned to think that what is happening in our community right now is natural and normal. We're conditioned to think that the killing of our community is natural and normal, that the local frequency of our students is natural and normal, that the 73% out of wedlock births is natural and normal with our women. The high prison rates is natural and normal. That we had 67,000, for example, black people killed over the 9 years from 2001 to 2010. That everything that's happening in our community is natural and normal, and it is not.
It is not.
It's not. So what I think is important for educators and writers to do, as I do in my writings and as I do in my teachings, I always show the example of how we were when things were normal for us prior to 1970, prior to 68, prior to 1964, the Bill of Rights, and prior to that time, so that our students and our readers, our young people can compare that how we are right now is not normal, that we do have a way of life that we can go back to. And I'm not even talking about Kemet yet. I'm not even talking about classical African civilizations or Kemet. I'm not even talking about the Moors from 711 to 1492. I'm not even talking about African kingdoms. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about what we did in this country within the last 2 eras. Mm-hmm. That we have a lot to draw from. That the civil rights agenda just closed that door on us to make us look forward from 1970 on. That the only higher up for us to be is with other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about remedies, how we can make things better for us and for our children. We're speaking with Taki Raton, who is an adjunct professor at Springfield College in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about how we can make things better for our community, for the black community. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Kathleen Wells Show. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells, and my guest is Taki S. Raton, who is an adjunct professor at Springfield College in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the fact that the civil rights movement has failed black people. I mean, he's gone into a lot of details, but right now what I'd like to do, I'd like to talk about what is the remedy? How can we make things better? How can our children know that things will be better? Well, one thing that you've written, Taki, is that our children and others need to know then and now that we have a legacy of masterful, perfect black communities where black-on-black violence was unheard of, where we ourselves lovingly prepared our children for dignified, pluralistic, humane interaction.
Yes.
Civil cooperation, work ethic competency, competitive skill sets, and contributory orientation towards the advancement of humankind ideals, where parents, intact black families, and black community-based institutions, like all other groups in America and throughout the globe, had a collective sense of self-esteem and self-group ideals, where there was a collective group self-identity, purpose, and direction, where our beautiful black children were raised to know, embrace, and cultivate their own talents, skills, gifts, and genius. Elaborate. Give us more. I love that paragraph.
Well, see, that was anybody in the sound of our voice that's listening who's old school, who was raised old school. I was raised Chicago old school. In that paragraph, I only talked about how I was raised and how multitudes of young people in my peer group, how we were raised. So that was not just taken from a book. We were raised that way, but in relation to your earlier question at the start of the show, we were raised that way because our parents thought that way. Our parents weren't trying to be like white folks. Our parents were not trying to chase after other people. Our parents came from the South North and had us. Our parents felt very good about themselves, very good about their blackness. And again, because we were in so-called, quote, segregated settings, all of our enjoyment, all of our associations was black on black on black on black. And we built and established what I call a higher order blackness. We knew. Our parents taught us how to act. The school was an extension of the home. The school was an extension of the neighborhood. The church was an extension of the school, the home, and the neighborhood. And so we had strong, at that time, Negro or African American ideals that we had to own up to. I knew I was going to college before I finished grammar school. When I was in high school, I knew I was going to pledge Alpha Phi Alpha when I was a sophomore. And even at that time, I knew what the albums were looking for in terms of getting into the Speaksman Club in the pledge line. I knew that. And so therefore, I was raised a certain type of way from grammar school into high school in terms of dorms, in terms of social stations, in terms of how to act. So all of that was in our culture at the time. We weren't trying. As a matter of fact, we were raised to think. If I may say this, and this is not putting down any other group. We were raised with that sense of self-esteem, a sense of identity, purpose, and direction, self-group ideas. We didn't want to be like. I didn't want to be like other people. We actually thought we were better than. And to sink down to try to be like someone else was to let go of those things that we held dearly as black people at that time. We wanted to show that we were not just like somebody else, but in fact competitive with and better than.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember Toni Morrison saying in her interview with Charlie Rose that her father always knew that he was morally superior. Not to put down others, but we were living in a Jim Crow segregated state, and yet the answer to Jim Crow for the civil rights movement was What's the difference between desegregation and integration? What's the difference?
And also, let me just say that we were taught by our parents, and our parents, we actually mastered the challenges of racism, white supremacy, and segregation. We mastered that. Desegregation was 1964's Bill of Rights. Now, and not to get the conversation, I'll try to do this briefly. All we had to do was to keep our butts in the black community and let the desegregation laws work itself out. All desegregation said was that segregation was then illegal, that the federal government and the state and the cities could no longer segregate black or any other populations. So all the so-called segregation doors opened up, and we then, at that point, had access to the larger society. And that's all we had to do. If we just kept desegregation and allowed ourselves to have access to the large society, and then the Black Power movement came, and then the Black Conscience movement came, and then we let the laws work itself out, we would have been one very strong people from the 70s going into the millennium. We would not have had these problems now. What integration did was integration put another spin on desegregation and said in order for us to properly integrate into and with somebody else, that we have to give up, let go, and relinquish all those things that kept us together culturally as a people. Let go of those things that are black, African, those things that are uniquely distinct to us. Now, those things that we uniquely distinctive to us is what carry us through old school, what carries through racism, white supremacy, and segregation. And once we let that go, we then became vulnerable to the system. We placed ourselves right into the system, and without what Francis Cress Welsing calls a cultural immune system. All other groups in the country, and what we did during old school, we developed a cultural immune system around our communities, our values, our culture, our identity, purpose, direction. All that was within our community, and we had a cultural fence around our community. Once integration hit, we let that fence go.
So we've analyzed.
We therefore had no protection. So we have not had no protection, no cultural protection as a people for 43 years over one generation. So we have let all of the forces of racism and white supremacy come directly on us, without our own people protecting us from that.
So we've analyzed it briefly in this hour, 55 minutes, 58 minutes. What is the remedy? How do we make things better?
I can only speak from my perspective, and that is going back into our history, because our history has all the models and lessons that we need. Our history. We didn't need Brown versus Ford in 1954. Our children were doing quite well in our own all-black schools up and to and through 1954. We were putting our children in colleges. But most importantly, the social development of our children was great. We taught our children what's called dual mastery. Dual mastery is when you master first your own culture, then master the culture of the large society. That's where your pluralistic values come from, your ethnic competency, competitive skill sets, and pluralistic interaction with others. We were taught how to master ourselves, our own culture, plus the culture of other people. We were taught all of that. And so we need to go back into our own models in this country of old school, our models prior to the civil rights era, even their models on the plantation that would make you proud. And then, in addition to that, go back to our history, go back to the Moors, go back to African kingdoms, go back to classical African civilizations, go back to African culture, to traditions. All those models we have to make us a strong and proud people. Go back into your history. Learn from your history, bring that up and build your community. And Runoko Robinson says one of the first things we got to do is love ourselves. Love ourselves again. And show our people and show our children the greatness and the beauty and the genius of who and what we are, who and what we have been, and who and what we are, the promise of that which we can become.
Now, you know, these movies like The Butler, The Help, The Slave, do you think they're detrimental?
Those are dangerous. They're very dangerous movies because they don't put that into a cultural context within the total context of our history. We have done some amazing things above, apart, beyond servicing someone else. But what that is conditioning us to see is that our natural role is to service other people, and that we should take pride in that.
Mm-hmm.
And that we have grown from serving other people to now having a president in the White House who is also now servicing other people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not doing any, and I'm not speaking against Obama. I'm real proud of him and we'll support that. But see, we're not doing anything different. We need to service ourselves using the comparison, the model of other groups, all other groups, the Hispanics, the Asians, the Indians, the Jews, everybody else who service first and foremost themselves, and stop gloating over the fact that we should highlight our role in serving other people.
Okay, well, I hear the music. I want to thank you, Taki Raton, for being my guest today on the Kathleen Wells Show. I'm going to invite you back. We got to explore these issues more because it's important. It matters. Thank you for being my guest.
And thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. This is the Kathleen Wells Show. My guest today was Taki Raton, and I'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye.